What's up, Focus fam? It's Focus Chan. Happy hump day, guys. Happy Wednesday and happy September. Hope you guys are doing well, starting the week strong. As always, bringing to you another video where we're going to dive into this beautiful market, find some setups, and hopefully finish the week strong. Let's dive right in here, guys. So before we do, just one big thing to note for the rest of the week, really quickly pulling up an economic calendar. We do have some stuff to deal with, guys, on Friday. So to wrap up today's session on Wednesday, we did have our ADP employment report, which ended up setting the market a little bit lower. End of week here, if you take a look at Friday, we have our non-farm payroll again, our NFP. It's going to be a big one. Very curious to see, leading into the new month, how does the market react to the jobs report? This will be on Friday morning. Let's see what happens, the Thursday before it, and then obviously on Friday and to end the week. But that really is one of the bigger catalysts that I'll personally be watching. That being said, guys, let's dive right in. So we're dealing with a beautiful market that just continues to grind higher. We've seen a lot of trend this year where we get a nice drop, we get a nice pop, and we just melt up. We get a nice drop, a nice pop, and we melt up. Drop, pop. I can keep going, guys. Drop, pop. So as of right now, we are reaching, technical exhaustion. Where if you look at this blue line in the market, this is 2 ATRs away from the daily mean, the 21 EMA. If you just look visually, this is a really good place for the market that's usually where it slows down. There's always an exception where we grind through it, but most of the time, this 2 ATR band does a really good job of telling you to chill out a little bit. The biggest thing this year has truly been just trying to capitalize on the drops and the pops, and then really staying, safe while we melt higher. So we've gotten that drop, we've gotten that pop, we had a little flag, and we've continued to melt higher here. And again, we're at that 2 ATR, starting to get a little bit toppy with the market going sideways here for about 3 days straight. Let's hop in, guys, and talk a little bit more intraday. So if we take a look, but focusing on very basic key levels, when the market melts higher, there's not many levels in play besides all-time highs. So if we take a look, guys, at this chart, the biggest levels that I'm currently watching is this 4,500 range, that prior all-time high, and then these new all-time highs. We have that 45.13 from earlier in the week, and we have our new all-time high zone, kind of just zoning this prior with the one overnight. If you take a look, since we've kind of arrived here on Monday, we've just been going back and forth, chop and chop and chop. And honestly, guys, as long as we stay in between these two key levels, the market's not necessarily going to pull back. It's most likely just going to go sideways and chop and eventually go higher. However, if for some reason this week, whether it's jobs, whether it's just pure price action, if we do start to break below that 45.13, which we held nicely on Tuesday, that's when we can start to see a nice little drop. And at that point, I'll be focusing on 4,500. We're starting a new month here. So I really want to dial in, guys, on the last month's point of control, which ended around 44.81. So that's the level to the downside that I'll be watching along with 4,500 if and when the market starts to roll over a bit. But again, it's a very bullish market. We don't want to call tops. We just want to read and react. So as long as we're sitting in between these key levels, guys, we are starting to form some squeezes. And right now we do have a decent 2-hour squeeze that we can use as a compass. Bollinger Bands don't look the best, but we have compression and we have consolidation. So again, as long as we kind of play ping pong in here, be patient and let the squeeze decide. Maybe we ping pong into Thursday and break out on jobs. Maybe we ping pong into Thursday and break down on jobs. Maybe we, make our decision on Thursday. We're gonna have to find out, but between these really two basic key levels and then a squeeze, that's enough to keep us in the right direction. If we take a look, guys, if we do chop a little bit longer, we are going to get another 4-hour squeeze, which last week led to a really nice explosion. So we're just taking that typical break here for the market. And again, it's not worth calling the top. Really just waiting to see and read and react. That's the best way to approach this market. So again, guys, to summarize here, keep it simple. If we break all-time high, we can continue to rip. If we don't, break these levels, we're just kind of chopping. And then once we do start to break down, that's why I like a push towards 4,500, one step at a time. If we take a look at tech, trying to lead the way over and over and over. And if we take a look, making a new all-time high today, but not really making too much progress. Just like ES, going to focus on very basic levels. We have that all-time high from Sunday night that we quickly broke on Monday. Gave an all-time high, gave another one, gave us a really nice zone. We rejected on Tuesday, went back to the bottom of our zone, which actually was created on Tuesday, and now we're back up here. So again, guys, if we just kind of chop in between these two levels, let the market squeeze. If tech can continue to rally, it needs to get back through all-time high. And if it does start to drift lower, really kind of like how this trend line is setting up. If we take a look, closed right at it here on technology. So if it continues to reject here, it's got a really good chance to head it back here. And if it does break that 15,517, it's got a good shot at that 15,455. Good levels in play. But be patient, guys. Just like ES, NQ is at those exhaustion levels. So we want to be mindful. It's very hard to approach it, guys, because we've seen it get there and continue to grind higher for weeks. So we could keep grinding higher. It's always just if this, then that. It's the best way to approach this game. Keep your bias and opinion out of it and just be prepared for either side. So again, if we start to break this wedge, we can head back down to this zone. If we break that zone, we can head down to the next one, which hosts last month's point of control. Let me just extend that a little bit. Here we go. Nice and clean. And again, guys, if it, slips the wedge and just stops in the middle, it could keep going up. Really basic levels in play. Just practice a little bit of patience and remember to watch the jobs. Let's see what happens here. Last index, guys, is YM. And this is one that truly can tell us a lot potentially, especially leading into the job report. It's been chopping sideways. It hasn't made new all-time high. Overall, it's been the lagging index. And this is one that I really want to pay close attention to. If it starts to bleed, we want to see if they sell off everything, meaning does tech go lower as well? Today, YM closed red, but tech closed green. They're still buying tech. Really pay attention, guys. If tech starts to pull back, do they buy the Dow Jones? Do they buy YM? And does it take a chance at its all-time high? If this happens, ES is not going lower. But if YM starts to bleed here again and NQ starts to bleed, we're going to see a real sell-off. But otherwise, we're just going to see some rotation. And not an index I talk about a lot, but small caps here, the Russell. They had a really good day, closing up almost 1%. So as long as they're buying something, guys, nothing to really panic on a downside, but we can use it to our advantage. If we see rotation, we know what to attack. Let tech pull back and start to attack Dow Jones names. If everything starts to bleed, we can short the market. Really straightforward here. We have a lot of good compasses. I hope this makes some sense. And the final thing I want to talk about is VIX. I know I talk about this a lot, but it keeps us in the right direction. Pay close attention, guys, to this 16 level. Every time we've gotten near 16, the market started to top out a bit. We got to 16 today, and the market started to get a little bit slippy. Nothing too crazy, but continue to watch this compass, guys, where if we do just loom at 16, the market is vulnerable of rolling over at any time. And if we start to head back below near 15, then we're probably exploding for an all-time high. Really keep a close eye on VIX. It's a pretty simple compass, but it does add a lot of value. So I hope that helps. Only have a few setups for you guys. Got to be patient, got to be picky. And here's what I got versus Roku. Been talking a lot about Roku in most of my videos, if you follow me. And finally, guys, it's starting to pay off. Been waiting for this beautiful 4-hour squeeze to fire, and it finally fired on Wednesday, getting right to that breakout point and pretty much closing at it. So let's break this one down a little bit, guys. If you look at the daily chart here, the biggest thing that Roku has to deal with is this 200-day simple moving average, this blue line. If we take a look, ever since we've breached it, it's been really big resistance, once, twice, 3 times, and closed right at it today. Also getting that reversion to the the white line, the 21 EMA. So nice reversion to the mean. This is the first step, guys, for Roku. It reminds me a lot of an Amazon. If we take a look, both were down bad, both went under the 200, and as soon as they cleared the 200 and held, so this candle looks like Roku today. If it can get above the 200, it could start to rally. Back to Roku. So the only thing going against Roku right now is the timing. It had every chance to rally with technology and just didn't. And of course, as soon as tech starts to get exhausted, Roku's like, hey, it's my turn to play. Not always the best timing, but this is one to pay attention to, guys. If tech does continue higher, Roku is probably one of the first names that they will pick up. It's a new month. We can expect some potential rebalancing. I'm assuming some funds out there need to buy some Roku, right? They've bought in everything else. They picked Amazon up off the lows, Facebook, Apple, you name it, Tesla. It's time for some Roku love. So pay attention to this one, guys. If it can get through this 200, get through this daily mean, I think it continue the journey higher. And again, don't want to call it an Amazon, But the next thing in line, guys, is the 50. If we get back to the 200, back to the mean, we get the 50 to get back to. So for Roku here, going to be patient on it, but I really like this day. I really like how it started. I like how it held relative strength even when the market went lower. Again, might be bad timing, but it is something to keep a close eye on, guys. Another big compass here is going to be the daily cloud, where we are underneath it. So it's not always my favorite playing underneath it, but we can start to head back towards it. And if we take a look here at the 4-hour cloud, we've really been waiting, guys, for this one to reverse. You know, above it, everything's great. Below it, everything's bad. And as soon as we slipped inside of it, we held it here twice. If you take a look, held it nicely, pretty much held it again. We held it here. We've really fought inside and are now trying to break out of it. So pay close attention to this one. Not many definitive levels, but if it keeps going higher, it's now on the other side of that 4-hour cloud, signaling a nice reversal. So to show you guys my drawing set here, a few levels to keep an eye on. So if we take a look, and actually going to start fresh here, this next zone is really what matters most. So again, if I just clear this up, really want to focus on this basic point, that 367, call it 368, which is also the 200 and is also the daily mean. Really nice level here. If they can continue, we got to go take out these next key levels, right? Nice little zone in front of us. So my first target, guys, for Roku, you know, especially this week, would be pushing towards that 380. And if it can get through that 380, you can see it's nice little resistance here. We got a shot up towards 400, in my opinion. And if we look at the moving averages on the daily, we got that 50 up near 400. So it might need some time. Maybe it explodes this week. All really going to depend if the market can support it. But it is one name that just hasn't gotten the love and now looks like it wants the love. But take a look, guys, at the 4-hour squeeze. We had nothing but tight momentum, super tight, and we're starting to shift it here today and release it. So again, if Roku can just hold this 368, if the market, you know, doesn't collapse, it's got a good chance of continuing. And again, I think 380 is the first logical target. ATR of about 15 points, moved about 15 points today. So just going from close here. Another ATR, guys, call it 15 points, gets us to that 380 target. So I want to pay close attention to this one, guys. For this week's expire, I am going to be dialed in here on the 380 calls. Again, if we can get those off the 368 and it makes the move, those are going to pay heavily. You're looking at a 4 or 5x return. Don't go any further. I think that's a little bit of a trap, especially nearing end of week here. But between the 375s and the 380s, that's a really nice strike. And then honestly, guys, I really like next week's 400 calls, which I'm already positioned in, and I'm just going to let them fly. We have a ton of volume, and 400 is that next logical target. So for me personally, guys, giving myself some time to see if this trade is one where, you know, the 4-hour squeeze starts some accumulation. And again, I hate to keep comparing it to Amazon, but they went down into earnings, they gapped out on earnings, Amazon based and Amazon exploded. Maybe Roku doesn't do the same, but right now it is setting up nicely. So I'm positioning myself in the squeeze, catching the breakout, seeing if we can, you know, give ourselves some time and go push to 400. Really, really good setup here, guys. And again, the only thing I don't like about it is the market, right? Market goes up, up, up. Roku does nothing. Market wants to pull back and Roku's like, hey, I'm coming. We'll see what happens here. But regardless, I think it's a really good setup to keep an eye on. Even if it does go lower, once tech goes higher, my eyes are back on Roku. So watch those key levels, guys. Watch the 200, watch the squeeze. Let's see what happens. Next up here, guys, is Nvidia. Really want to keep a close eye on this one, especially for a short trade. If we take a look, it's kind of just been grinding higher here, grinding higher, giving us a nice little trend line to work with. If we look at the daily chart, this thing is just screaming, I'm tired. It's at that 3 ATR. And again, guys, there's always exceptions. Sometimes we grind 3 ATR to the moon. This one was a little bit different because it had to do with a stock split. So if you look in the past, you know, anytime we hit 3 ATR, we pull back. We hit 3 ATR, we pull back. So this is one of my favorite names to potentially short if the market starts to head lower here. If we take a look again at that trend line. Oh, wrong one. There we go. So let me just clean this up a bit, guys. So again, watching this straight little trend line, you know, we are kind of topping out, starting to trend down here. So if the market goes lower and Nvidia starts to break down, here's what I'll be focusing on, guys. Like to see it break that 221 and get towards that 220 range. So So not break 221, rather break 223-ish, kind of where it's been holding here the last few days. If we can break that wedge, break that 223, we do have a good shot down towards 220. And the reason, guys, that I'm watching 220 is it is last month's point of control. So you can see last month's point of control is right around 219 and a half. If the market crumbles and if Nvidia breaks this wedge, it could be a nice short down towards 220. Right? Ignore point of control, guys. It moves when you change the time frame, but right around that, 219 and a half range. Something to watch. Again, it might just chop here at the highs, but I don't really have an interest in it long. So it is a name that I will be keeping an eye on short. For now, guys, on Nvidia, I like the 220 puts. Right now, they're about 60 cents. So if they do make it in the money, you're talking a nice double or triple. And again, it's a really good trade if the market starts to head lower and retrace, because Nvidia will do the same thing. Right now, the mean's down below near 211. We got that point of control near 219. Let's see. One I'm really keeping my eye on for the short side. And then finally here, guys, this is one setup that I want to share with y'all to just keep an eye on. Not really something that I'm stalking this week, but it is something I want to start to put on our radars, and that is Square. So if you take a look at Square, guys, really nice wedge starting to form. And you can even, draw the wedge from different points. You can draw it from here. Still looks really valid. You could probably draw it from here. I like drawing from this recent little, base. From the highs, we're just starting a wedge. It's not the cleanest, but it is starting to develop. What I like most is it's starting to get inside of a daily squeeze. Bollinger Bands are really wide right now, so I'd like to see this thing squeeze a little bit more. If it does respect the wedge, it could go into next week, which would be ideal. But this is one to keep an eye on, guys, where it could offer both sides, where if it does get near this wedge and break down, it could easily head back to the bottom of this squeeze, back down towards 260, back down towards 255. Vice versa, if it starts to break out, it's got a shot at all-time high. Then a tough stock, guys, at these levels. Every time it's near 270, it fails, it fails, it fails. So keep a close eye on it. But the fact that it's starting a wedge, starting a daily squeeze, I personally like it. Again, not something I'm really looking to trade right now, but if we just start to look at next week's contracts, for example, 280s are starting to look decent for next week. All right, starting to see some decent volume here. Just something to keep an eye on, guys. I haven't really sized up too many strikes, more so just wanted to keep this on my radar. As it starts to wedge, see how tight this gets, see if it gets a little more valid with retests and holds. And then once it breaks out, if the squeeze wants to help, it could go in either direction. Really, really like this one. Just needs a little bit of patience. If it does break down, guys, watch that cloud. It could be a really nice target on the downside and also gets you back near that 50-day simple. This purple line is going to migrate and get right around that same level, which again gets it to the bottom of the zone. So that would be my target to the downside. Vice versa, guys, if it breaks out here, looking for 280 and looking for 290, all-time high. But be patient, probably need some time. But that's my thoughts here, guys. Going to keep it tight for the rest of the week, really focusing on market trades, whether it's up or down with SPX. Going to focus on playing Roku and managing Roku. Got a little Nvidia if the market starts to roll. And then we got some Square here starting to set up nicely. But a lot of names, guys, like, Facebook, Apple, Google, all are just a little bit extended. That's why if tech does continue, I really like Roku. It's the only thing that really hasn't gotten caught up yet. Amazon's gone nuts. Everything's exploded. So just be careful. Chase into the extended tech names and be ready for the downside. And then one more name here, guys, to keep an eye on is Goldman Sachs. This is something where, again, if and when YM starts to get rotation, it'll probably be a fun one. And right now it's sitting nicely under a 4-hour squeeze, under all-time high. And this morning, I saw a really big seller on the tape, 74 on the ask, right at about 416 and a half. If it can get through these levels, this little zone with all-time high, and have a good job report, it could fly, guys. So the thing with the job report is sometimes, it's good news for YM and bad news for tech. So you're going to see names like banks explode and tech go lower. That's what happened last job report. So keep an eye on this one, guys. Again, just really watching it for now into the end of week. But if you like a lotto and you want to position into the job report, this is something I will be keeping an eye on. The 420s look really decent right now. About 2,200 volume, about $1. Can easily 3x your money. keep a close eye on this one. Could be a nice little trade that shocks you, depending on how the job report goes. Nice and strong, sitting at all-time high, just kind of waiting. Take a look, getting in other squeezes, but I think the 4 hours is the best one to watch. But that's my thoughts, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, drop me some love, turn on notifications, and let's keep kicking butt, team. Appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful week.